Hi students, in this video I am going to talk about your brain. That is your brain, which is a part of your central nervous system, right? We know that our brain is one of the foremost very important part of our central nervous system, and you guys all know that central nervous system comprise of two things. That is, one of them is brain and the another one, that is, you have your spinal cord. So your brain is one of the finest and the most important organ which it comes in your body, right? First thing, where is the brain present? The brain is present inside a box of bone which is called as the skull, right? That is the skull, right? That is also called as cranium, right? The skull, or what we call as the box in which your brain is present, it is also called as the cranium, right? The skull is also called as cranium, right? And this skull is having an internal liquid, right? A fluid which is filling the cavity inside the skull, which is acting as a shock absorber, right? This shock absorber is called as cerebrospinal fluid. It is called as cerebrospinal fluid. That is also, in short, we can call it CSF, right? It is called as CSF. Okay, and when we go for the further structure of the brain, you have seen that there are so many crest and trough. You have seen so many zigzag things which are being made across your brain. So the inner grooves, right? The inner grooves which are formed, right, in your brain, they are called as sulci, and the outer bulged portion, it's they are called as, right, outer bulged portion, they are called as gyri, right? The reason behind the presence of this gyres and sulci, right? You have seen that you have your brain, and inside your brain you have so many crystal stuffs which can be seen. So the inner groove, they are called as the sulci, wherever the upward, that means the bulged portion, they are called as the gyri. The reason behind this gyri and sulci, it is to increase the amount of nerve cells, or what we call it them as neurons, right? Neurons, they will increase the neurons inside your brains, and therefore there are gyri and sulci which are present on that of your brain. So here, first thing, that is, the brain is present on the bone box which is called as the skull, which is also called as cranium. There is a fluid which is present all across in the skull, which is acting as a shock absorber and also keeps the skin or the layer of your brain moist. That is your cerebrospinal fluid. The inner grooves which are there, the zigzag things which you can appear, which you see on your brain, they are called as the gyres and the sulcis, which are responsible for the increase in the amount of nerve cells all across your brain. Now let's look forward about the different part of the brain, right? Your brain, it is divided into okay. So when we talk about your brain is divided into three parts. Your brain is divided into three parts. First part is called as the front brain or the forebrain, right? That is the forebrain, right, which is the most important part, and we also call this as cerebrum, right? We call it as cerebrum. Okay, then we have the middle part, that is the midbrain, right? And the last one, that is what we call as the hindbrain, that is the hidden or the back part of the brain, that is what we call as hindbrain. right? So here when we talk about the forebrain can be further divided, right? Here whatever the forebrain we have, the forebrain can be further divided into many other lobes, right? The forebrain is further divided into many other lobes. Like for example, we have the first one, right? The first lobe which we have here, we call it as frontal lobe, right? Frontal lobe. Then you have another one, that is what we call as parietal lobe, right? Parietal lobe. Then another lobe you have, that is called as occipital lobe, right? And you have, that is temporal lobe, which is the last part of your forebrain, that is the temporal, right? That is the temporal lobe, right? Here children, I will not discuss about the function of them right now. First we will see all the part of the brain, and then we will move forward with the structures of them and their functions also. So another part of your brain, that is midbrain, they actually do not have much division in them. They are only a single portion of it is there. But when we talk about what we call as your hindbrain, your hindbrain can also be divided into three different parts. One is called as cerebellum. One is called as your cerebellum, right? Another one which you have, right? Another one which you have that is a medulla oblongata. That is your medulla, right? Medulla. And the last part you have, that is your, what we call it as your pons, right? So in basically this is a flow chart which says you about the different layers of your brain. That is forebrain is divided into frontal, parietal, occipital and the temporal lobe, whereas you have the midbrain is not further divided, and the hindbrain is having three different parts, that is the cerebellum, medulla and the pons, right? Cerebellum, medulla and the pons. So first thing let's do is let's talk about the forebrain, right? First let's talk about the forebrain, right? Forebrain. So when we talk about the forebrain, it is also called as cerebrum, right? It is also called as cerebrum. And when you see this forebrain from the front side, you will see that it is divided into two lobes, right? It is divided into two lobes which are called as hemispheres, right? These two hemispheres of cerebrum are called as cerebral hemisphere. They are called as cerebral hemisphere. What they are called as? Cerebral hemisphere, right? Cerebral hemisphere, right? And these two cerebral hemisphere, they are connected with each other with a membranous tissue, which is called as corpus callosum, right? They are connected with each other with something called as corpus callosum, right? Again I am repeating the name, right? The two hemisphere, right? The two hemisphere of the brain, right? Of your what brain? So your forebrain, right? I am talking about the forebrain, are connected by what we call as corpus callosum, right? And you also see that gyres and sulci, which I have already explained upstairs, so I will not go into deep for them, right? They are divided into two hemisphere, and this hemisphere, they are connected by a membranous tissue of the connective tissue, which is also made up of neural tissues, that is your corpus callosum, and they are playing a very important role in many part of your body. So first we will talk about the frontal lobe, right? I will only mention their function. The frontal lobe, when you talk, the frontal lobe will help you, right? They will help in the personality, right? They will help in the personality, also the emotional status, right? The emotional behavior, emotional relay, or we also called as the emotional behavior, will also be maintained by them. The another one work of this, they will help in solving problems. They will help in solving problems. They will help in the solving problem. They will be also responsible for planning, right? And judgment. And the another function which you can go, they can be for the speech, right? That is the speaking movement, right? Your body movement, and so on, right? And the body movement and so on. But basically this is the frontal lobe which is responsible for a intelligence of a person, right? They are responsible for the intelligence of a person. Now let's move to the second one which we have, that is called as your partial lobe or the parietal lobe, right? We will go for the second one, that is called as the parietal lobe, right? So the function of this parietal lobe, that will be about the sense of touch, right? Sense of touch. It is also for the sense of pain, right? Sense of temperature, right? So these are some sense organism. That means it will sensing part is basically related with that of the parietal lobe. And apart from that, it will also help in the what we call as, that is interpretation of signal from vision, right? It will also help in the interpretation of signals for vision, that means for the visibility what we see, right? Also for the hearing, right? And also it is responsible for the memory, right? It is also responsible for the memory. Then you have the third one, right? The third part which we have, that is called as occipital, right? Occipital lobe. And this occipital lobe is basically responsible for the vision, right? It is responsible for the vision. They will help you to identify the colors, they will help you to identify the lights, and also it can help in some movements. It will also can help in some movement. Then you have the last one, the fourth lobe, that is what we call as temporal lobe. And this temporal lobe is responsible for the understanding. It is responsible for the understanding, right? And then it will also be responsible for the memory. Memory means we are remembering the different things. And also with hearing, also for the hearing, and also for the sequencing, right? For the sequencing and organization right? So these are the functions of the different lobe of your cerebrum, right? Cerebrum, and they can help you in many of the functions. In your book they have just summarized all of them together, and they have given only the direct function, that means the forebrain is responsible for the intelligent senses. So only that part is being mentioned here in your textbook, so no need to worry about it. You can directly write those changes, so it is fine. But here I have divided them into 3 lobes, right? Then you have the midbrain. So what do you mean by the midbrain? That is the middle portion of your brain which is responsible, right? Which is responsible for the function when we'll talk. So they are responsible for the reflex movement, right? Reflex movement in short, if I talk about that, whenever you have the movement of your neck, head, right? Neck, head, and the trunk means the lower part of your body. So even the what we call as, they will be responsible to response to, they will help to response to what we call as visual means whatever we see, and also auditory auditory means if you listen some sound, so they will also help you to identify that what sort of sound it is, who is speaking. They will help you to identify the different sound which are being listened by you, right? And they will also maintain the movement, right? Movement of the eyes, right? Movement of eye muscles, right? Eye muscles will also be regulated by them. And the last and final, they will also help in the adjustment, right? They will also help in the adjustment of the eye lens, that is eye lens. So these are some functions of your midbrains. And when the last and the final one that you have, that is hind brain, that is the innermost part, that is the lowermost part of your brain, that is your hind brain. Now what are the functions of hind brain? So we will study them slowly. That is the pons, right? First we will study about the pons. Pons will be helping, right, in the regulation, right? They will help in the regulation of respiration. They will help in the respiration. Also they will also carry the information, right? They will carry the information, right? Whatever the information which is there, right? They will carry the information from cerebellum to the cerebrum, right? To the cerebrum, right? This is what the function we have for that of your pons, right? Basically when we talk about this pons, so where is this pons located? So when we see the structure of the brain, right, I will draw a rough possible diagram, right? So when you see the structure of your brain, you have something of this kind, right? So this lower part, this is your cerebellum, right? This is your cerebellum, right? This is your cerebellum, and this part is your cerebrum, right? Here you will have the pons, and this triangulate, the club shaped part, which is connecting the brain with that of your spine, that is your spinal cord. It is what we call as medulla. So the pons serve as a media through which the cerebral knowledge or information are transferred to the cerebrum. So the next part which we have for the second one, that is you have cerebellum, right? Cerebellum. So cerebellum helps in maintaining the body posture, right? They will help to maintain the posture of your body, right? That means they will help you in the balancing, right? They will also help in the balancing, right? They will help to balance your body, right? They will help in balancing of the body. They will balance of the body, they will maintain the balance of the body. And apart from that, they will help to make accurate, that is what we call as accurate, precise movement, right? They will help to make accurate, precise movement by the body, right? So this is why the most important function of cerebellum is your body posture, right? So they will help you to balance your body, right? So they will help you balance the body, and therefore they are of a great importance. And the last and the third one, that is the medulla, right? That is medulla oblongata, that is what we call. And the first function of medulla, if you can remember, the club shaped part at the lower end of the brain, right? So this medulla, it controls involuntary action, involuntary acts. Just for example, we have that is breathing, right? We have that is beating of the heart, that is your heartbeat, right? And so on. All this involuntary action means which are not in your control. You cannot control them. So these actions are being controlled by your medulla oblongata. They will also control, that is what we call as that is swallowing of the food. They will help in the swallowing of the food, right? They will also help, they will cause that is coughing, right? And vomiting. So these are some important functions which are regulated by that of medulla. That means they have, that is the involuntary part of your brain, and they will contain, they will help in some functions like breathing. They will help in the heartbeat, right? So these are some functions of the different parts of the brain, and I have elaborated them in the most possible ways. So here you have the list of all of the function, and I hope that you are clear with what are the functions of different part of the brain. And if you have any problems, please just do let me know, mention in the comments. If it is possible, I can help you out with whatever the possible ways. Thank you.